Welcome back to Loose Framing Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martin-Olich, and joining me today, as always, is...
Jesse Brock.
Hey, Jesse. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am peachy. We've got a cool upcoming show.
Peachy's a good thing, right?
Peachy?
I've heard people say peachy, and they're not good.
No, that wasn't a sarcastic
That
peachy.
was good, right? Yeah.
I'm having a good day.
Peaches are good.
Yeah, the coffee's finally kicked in, and I'm ready to go. We have a fun show today. We have filmmaker, educator Ryan Watson. Who's going to be on the program in a little bit.
Yeah.
Talking about his history teaching, but also his upcoming film paper line, which I'm very excited to see.
Yeah. We're doing a special screening.
We are this summer.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say the date because I don't know when this is actually launching in context of that premiere. But
yeah, but part of the special screening is there's going to be a kung fu performance.
Yeah.
I mean, do you call it that?
No.
Kung fu
demonstration.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
We have that coming up, and I'm sure people are going to be able to see the film in a variety of ways at different festivals.
Yeah, but Ryan is just such a treat to talk to.
Yes.
Like, he's so sincere and knowledgeable, and talking to him is like, you just take so much out of it, even if you don't realize that you are, because it's just like you're talking to a friend. And I don't know,
once an educator, always an educator.
Exactly. And I know I used to be a teacher back in my day, and so did you. So I think we can both relate. Children. We can both relate to that educator mentality of wanting to see those people succeed. And
of course. And there's nothing more rewarding than having taught someone and then seeing them succeed. At least you hope that's the reason you're teaching.
Yeah.
Because if it's not, you probably shouldn't be teaching. Well, with that, we'll be right back with our guest, Ryan Watson. Welcome back to Loose Frame Podcast. Joining me now is filmmaker and educator Ryan Watson. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good, man. Thank you for having me.
I'm really glad you're here. You have an amazing film coming up that we're doing a premiere for at Tampa Theater. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I wanted to start by doing what I call the good housekeeping question. So for our listeners who are maybe not familiar with you, give us a little bit about your background.
Okay, my background, born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. I was there until about 1997. And then I moved down to Collier County to go to high school. My dad had some property down there, and I lived with him. And I was able to get in-state residency to come to USF for college. In high school, I did a lot of stuff: TV production, a lot of sports, basketball, football, softball, baseball. Filmed all of that stuff. I initially wanted to be like a sportscaster. And then I got to USF and I saw myself on camera and I was like, nah, this is like, and not so much seeing myself, but hearing myself. I did not like how I sound. And then I got some pretty good feedback where someone said, look, if you want this, you can do it, but it's going to take a work. You have this accent going on. You have, this is part of the job. You have to put in a lot of time to do that. And so when I went around and got some information about how long and how much work it would take for me to get to sound like an actual broadcaster, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. Especially because I was already pretty good at filming and editing as it was. So I was just like, no, I'm not going to do this. And then I just, I did a lot of stuff with USF, working for the Oracle, Bulls Radio, stuff like that, and it didn't really move me.
Yeah.
I loved shooting and editing. So while I had the news degree, I did all the news classes at USF because by the time I realized I didn't want to do it anymore, I was already too far into it to change my major. So I'm gonna just finish it up and do all my internships in production. So I interned at MTV Networks in 06, the summer of 06 for Best Week Ever. I did some stuff with Run's House. And I think there was one like Top 20 Countdown that I was able to sit in on. So that worked out pretty well. And when I came back to USF to finish my final semester, I was a TA. And it all just sort of fell into place at the right time. I was lifeguarding through college, which I don't regret it because it taught me to be like observant of my surroundings, but I probably shouldn't have done it as long as I did because my next job was going to be master control over at 38. And that was one of those jobs that I always tell my students that I think that's a great job for anyone to have, because you have a ton of free time. You make sure you're on air, make sure all your stuff is correct, and then if you need to write scripts, if you need to plan and work on your own content, you have an abundance of time to do that, particularly now because you can do stuff on your phone and get a lot of work done on your phone. So I got that job in the spring of '06, and I stayed there for probably about a year and a half, and then they opened up something in creative services. And I took that immediately just to get off. I was doing overnights in master control. I took the job in creative services. It gave me a lot of reps, a lot of just like that. That experience was invaluable. And so I did that for a year, and then I got the job that was actually going to really like accelerate me to where I wanted to be, and that was working with the Seminole Tribe of Florida. They needed somebody to run video operations at their field office in Tampa, and then I didn't realize it at the time because the way the job was it said you just gonna film culture and events, special events for the tribe. They didn't mention that you would get to do the Hard Rock as well. So when I got there, I was able to film all the cultural events, which were very interesting. I have some family that are Native American, so it was nice to get in touch with that. And then obviously to be able to get over to the Hard Rock, where I was able to meet Gina and John Fontana and those folks, and they really like gave me a lot of good opportunities to just show what I could do and to give me an audience, because there's a lot of amazing videographers and filmmakers, but they don't have an audience. So you get that audience at the Hard Rock, like you're in there. And so I did that for about 5.5 years. On the tail end of that, I started to reached the ceiling over there pretty quickly. And there wasn't, because I didn't want to move down to like the headquarters in Hollywood, like the ceiling is like boom, and like that's it. If you want to get promoted after that, you have to move down south, and I wasn't ready to do that because I have a wife and 2-3 kids. So when that happened, I was just like, what can I do now? And I loved teaching. It's always been something that I've been pretty good at. As far as me as a filmmaker is concerned, I did some short stuff. I did a lot of stuff for other people, but I didn't do a lot for myself. And so I did Florida State's first Seminole for Justin Motlow, who was the first actual Seminole tribal member to play football at Florida State. That was my thesis for grad school. It screened at Gasparilla in 2015. And then I just went completely dry. I'm going to throw all my energy into my teaching and becoming a better videographer and making sure that when I step in the classroom that my students like respect me as somebody who knows what he's doing. So I didn't do anything. And then I went to the conference, the University Film and Video Association conference, and I'm out there with all the best film teachers in the country. They all had all kinds of published films, festivals, all that, and I'm looking at my resume like I don't have anything. So that's what sort of really accelerated me to be like, all right, I got to start writing my own stuff to keep up, because I am pretty competitive, and I don't want to ever feel like I'm just in that space, just existing, collecting a check because I can. I want to make sure that my performance is up to par with everyone else, and it just makes for a better situation. And you know this as well. When you're in a classroom with a bunch of students, and for what we do specifically, they ain't really interested in hearing about what you did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They want to know what you've been doing within the last 2 to 3 years. And you always want to keep that sort of in the back of your mind when you're dealing with a technology thing. It's very important to stay current on that. And that's essentially how I started really making films. And we did 48-hour film festival a couple of times. The Ivy League, obviously, and then Paperline, as you mentioned.
And we'll get to Paperline here in a little bit. But I want to rewind just a little bit. You were the first educator we've had on the podcast. And I think it's really important because, it is so often people default to education as like a fallback, right? Like, well, what else am I going to do? Work's dry. I want to teach. But teaching really is a calling, and there's a lot of bad professors out there. As everyone's experienced, whether it was in junior high school, college, whatever, people that are just bitter about life. They haven't updated They're programming in God knows how long. I remember a professor in college, history professor, and I was a history major at one point, and he was teaching the same book that had not been updated since 1978. You can say that maybe history doesn't change that much, but there was nothing past 1978 in this book, and his curriculum hadn't changed, and he's been teaching the same syllabus since 1978. And I looked at this, it's like, this is the worst professor I've ever had in my life. So let's go back to the start of your teaching career. Mm-hmm. His name was Dr. I shouldn't say that. He's probably long dead at this point. But let's go back to the starting of your teaching career. What was the biggest learning curve for you? Because it's one thing to sit into a classroom and be taught. It's another thing to be in the front of the classroom and teach. So what was that like?
Well, for me personally, I was a young guy. I was 30 years old when I started teaching, which is, 7 years removed from graduating.
Yeah.
Like I graduated right before 07s in the winter. I graduated winter of 06, and in the spring of 14, I'm in the classroom in charge of some students. What I would say the biggest learning curve was it wasn't so much my knowledge, because it was very apparent that I didn't have the Wes Eldridges in the classroom at that point. Thank God, because it gave me some time to grow and see what the lay of the land was for students.
Yeah.
So that's why everyone should start out adjuncting. I don't ever encourage anyone to jump into a full-time teaching situation just cold without having adjuncted first. You have to do that. That should be a rule, in my opinion. But it gave me a chance to sort of just evaluate what are the skill sets of these students. I don't ever want to be the type of educator that stands up and tries to tell people stuff that they already know. So when I got in the classroom, it was just evaluating the landscape first. What do you know? What don't you know? Do we have a prodigy in here that I can just sort of just critique more along the lines of creative choices and technical choices, and then we can go from there. So that was step one. And then step two was obviously I had to bring the discipline because I was a younger guy. And it's just, that's the rules of the jungle, is that the younger people, they get less respect.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we see it in all walks of life. So if I'm stepping in this classroom here and I'm a young guy, they can see all my stuff from Hard Rock, say, oh, he's a cool dude. He parties at the Hard Rock. He does all these things. We're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And then you got to snap back in there and be like, yo, like, we here to work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not here to be your buddy. Like, we can be cool after class, but while we're here, I need you to listen to me and understand that what I'm trying to get you to a place where you can be a professional. And so for me, it was, again, having my own content that I could show them as an example of this is what is acceptable. Yeah. This was a result. Like, I ended up on a red carpet event at the Hard Rock because of this here. You don't get to say that if you haven't had the experience and you showing some stuff you did in '89. It doesn't work that way. Students will tune you out.
Yep.
And I've seen it happen, because I've had to teach a class or two where I was like, oh, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. Where it was like, yo, Ride, like, there's nobody else. You got to do it. You can do it. We believe in you. And I'm in there, and my confidence is shot from the beginning. I do my best, but then I'm still like, oh, Lord, like, I don't have, this isn't me, really. So, again, being in the classroom, to your point, everything you said is absolutely correct about updating your syllabus, changing things around. You have to be able to do that. And then you also have to be ready for the blowback when you change things around, and then some of the folks that you're alluding to don't like it.
Yeah.
And then they try to get in the way of you from saying, hey, look, that's not good. You shouldn't be doing that. Well, look, this is where the market is taking us. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. This is where the market is going.
Yeah, and maybe my example in history class it wasn't the best, just because of how quickly, yes, history is always being made, but It's not moving at light speed like technology is.
Correct.
No matter what field you're in, if there's technology associated with it, it changes by the time you blink. I started out in college, my freshman and sophomore year, we were still cutting on an old Steinbeck, right? Like I was cutting 16 millimeter film, and it was only my junior year that we got our first digital editing platform, which was a Media 100.
Right.
And I remember spending $1,000 for a 1 megabyte external drive, a 1 megabyte external drive. for $1,000, and now I can buy a terabyte for 200.
Right.
But things move that quickly, and what I've noticed, and maybe you'll agree, the students come into class now knowing how to do a lot of things, right? Because they have access to their phones, and editing software is built into most computers now. It's there, right? I don't have to spend a lot of money. It's accessible. So what is the goal now as a professor, if not to teach technology, which they may or may not already know? What is your main drive to instill in your students?
Now we got to work on the storytelling. Because, again, there's students now, they come in and they've learned how to color grade from YouTube. They've learned, cameras and stuff like that. So it's like, all right, now let's sharpen your skills. Let's understand, when is it appropriate to go handheld versus when do you need to be on the gimbal? When do you, that's now what it is. But we still get those who know nothing.
Sure.
And so finding that balance, that's what you get paid for. There's such a need for content now that you can get away with doing things on your phone and you can still get 1 million views on YouTube. And so people, you could do that, but you still need to be able to tell a story. And so now my focus with all the technological advances is to make sure that we understand storytelling. And that's something that I actually have evaluated just at this last semester. Is all right, hold up. Now we're getting the really cool shots. Everyone's video reel is going to look really good, but your long format stuff needs some work, and we need to start telling better stories. So for me, in this next year, we just cleared a year of the first year of the the View Studios partnership. It's like with the technological side, I think we're good. Now I got to start hammering away on the storytelling, because it don't make sense to be able to, have the amazing equipment and then your stories, you still don't understand that there's a A, a B, and a C.
Yeah. No, that's so true. It's not enough to just know how to push the button. You need to know why you're pushing the button.
Correct.
And storytelling is certainly king, and it will always continue to be. And I think that's one thing that makes, humans just so unique, is that we're always great storytellers, and having professors or mentors be able to channel someone's ability to tell a story into a way that reaches other people and tells their unique story to people that would never hear their voice otherwise is a really awesome power and a really inspiring thing to do as a career. Now, you mentioned USF's partnership with Diamond View, and for those who are listening to, I'm not familiar, Diamond View or View Technologies is an LED volume technology company. They're really leading the way in LED volume tech, but also how to use that technology, because it is such a new form of storytelling. They partnered with USF, and tell us a little bit about the fellowship you find yourself in now at USF, and what your actual responsibilities are, and what that partnership is.
Yeah, it all came about through check your DMs, people. Like Tim Moore DM'd me and was like, "Hey man, we got to get you over to show you the space." And I went over there like a couple days before Christmas. He talked about what did we need. I asked him what I could do for them, and then that was essentially it. We had that thing in there by, I think it was the end of June. Tied everything up. I think we had all the accessories and everything right, like first week of school, boom. A lot of people don't realize you can't just go in there with any old camera. It's a certain camera. There's a science to it. It's not a green screen where you just put the green screen up, any camera on there, and then you're good to go. Like if you miss a space in there, then you're showing your digits on your LED wall, and that's a dead giveaway. So a lot of it is just managing the program, looking at applications of students who want to be enrolled in the class, working with our lab people, Steve and Christian, about getting a schedule lined up where everyone can feel like they have access to it. We only allow certain people in, you have to be enrolled in the class to use the space as like you can book time to be in there. You have to be in one of the studio classes in order to do that. And then if you're not, you can still book time. You just have to have someone who's in the class with you who can go in there, who knows how to work the camera, the wall, etc. So a lot of it is just staying in contact with View Studios and getting feedback, troubleshooting, stuff like that. I'm gonna actually be doing some time with them this summer as well, just to get sort of caught up. Everything moves so fast. over the last summer that I didn't, and it's always changing as well. So I have questions that I need, and then you can't really get it when you're in the classroom, like, you know, and they're crazy busy as well. So we actually have allocated some time this summer where I can get in there with them. I trained with them last summer as well. I sat in for, it was a Disney Cruise Line shoot. They had the WWE shoot, which I loved that one. That was like my favorite. I love wrestling. So I was in there for that. And like, I really just was able to sort of come up with some assignments just by being in there and seeing how, like, you don't want to overwhelm them because they are still students, and just, you also have to think about the space. Like, our space is a lot more compact than what they have at the main studio, so you just sort of have to get in there and practice and figure out what works and what doesn't work. And we've been through 2 trials of this. We're going to do the third one is in August. So now after 2, I've figured out pretty much what works and what does not work. And the students, they love it. They come in there. It's a very, like, friendly atmosphere. It's very relaxed. I want them to be themselves and come up with concepts. And they all of them, even some of the quiet ones, I'll be like, look, you never talk like ever. They come in there with some really good ideas. And so it's just my job to manage all of it. You can't micromanage creativity. That just ruins ideas. So you just have to get in there and make sure everyone understands the basic fundamentals, safety rules, stuff like that. And then from there, it's just a matter of working on the storytelling and fine-tuning their techniques, because they donated us FX6, that's not no mirrorless camera. Like, that's a big boy. So you got to understand that's a different camera. And it's been wonderful seeing them sort of just want to get in there and want to, like, hey, can I book time? Can I go in there and shoot? That first class that we started in August, I started out very small because I didn't know what I was still learning. So I was like, just give me 8 or 9 students. I think we might have ended up with like 9, maybe 10. They were in there like all the time shooting, and like, it was wonderful. Like, I loved it. And the same thing continued after this semester. So now I don't have to worry so much about the technical. It's just a matter of, okay, when are you going to use that? Okay, and let's try it this way. So I can tell someone, look, pull focus, move the camera this way, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's just a matter of them enhancing the story. So additional responsibilities, just, you know, studio tours, people who want to come in and see it, tell them what we're doing.
You know, people are really lucky if they're going to school in Tampa Bay, or they're living in Tampa Bay and they're into film and digital media. This technology, LED volume technology, and for those who are listening, who maybe not be familiar, it's basically real-time compositing and green screen. You're able to put into a digital background in real time, with actors able to actually see what the final product's going to look like on camera, which is a really amazing and unique thing. And there's very few of these walls worldwide right now. I think 5 years from now, they'll be ubiquitous. Everyone will have one of these walls. But right now, we're one of the few markets that has a very large and several LED volume studios in market, but also our 2 film colleges, you mentioned USF, but also UT, also have LED volume screens for their students to use through the generosity of Diamond View and View Technologies. But it is, at the end of the day, just another tool in the toolbox, and it really is about unlocking the student's ability to tell a story in a unique way. And now they're not limited by their means. Their imagination can come to life just because they're able to put something on this wall that can take them to Mars or a spaceship or in the desert, wherever they want to be at. So if you were to talk to someone who is graduating high school today, and they have a couple different career paths, maybe they want to just go right into film and find mentorship and freelance and work their way through it, or someone who is looking for more of an educational background, what would your advice be to students? Again, this would be graduating high school, going into college. 1, what is the reason for them to go to college and study film? And 2, what is some advice as they're starting that educational career?
Well, first of all, I would say this. Everyone is not built to leave high school and start working. That's a different breed of work. I encourage people to go to college. I'm a 2nd generation college student. My dad was 1st generation. All 3 of me, my brother, and my sister, we all went and got our masters. That was just what was expected of us, because my dad and my mom harped on the fact that their parents never went to college and that we were going to be better than that. What I would say about college, more so than any kind of film education that you get, it's about becoming a better person, being able to work alongside people that don't necessarily come from your background. And so I encourage some form of higher education, even if it's like a 2-year experience at a junior college or something like that. I think I think everyone needs that. That's just my personal opinion, because it makes you a better person. You don't become a better person by just isolating yourself and being around people. And sometimes you need that educational structure in order to force you to open your eyes and look at things differently than you would otherwise. So that's the first thing I would say about going to college. As far as film is concerned, what I would say is that, again, everyone is not built to just, oh, I'm 18, I'm going to work and get money. It doesn't always work that way, because people don't necessarily have respect for you. You don't get paid what you're going to get paid if you put in a few years at a college and come out with that degree, assuming that you're smart with your finances and don't go too far in debt. They just don't respect for you. They'll pay you peanuts because you're young and you're uneducated. So they look at your resume and they like, okay, this, no college, 18. All right, well, we'll start you off at this. And you don't have no choice but to take it. You know what I mean? So you come to college, you can still sort of do that anyway. Yeah. The way the system is set up now, you can take your classes and work freelance. The college experience of being able to work well, work with others, become a better person. And then in our situation, you can come to a state-of-the-art facility, both at USF, at UT. Then you have a lot of options. So that's why, to your point about Tampa being sort of a really good place where you can come, you can freelance, you can go to school, you can do both at the same time if you want. I know people who put themselves through college freelancing. Yeah. So these are opportunities that you have if you come to our area that you won't get in a lot of other places. So that's essentially what I would say to anyone in high school is like Tampa, stay home. You know what I'm saying? That's something that I missed out on. I did not, my family was spread out all over the place, Baltimore, Collier County, stuff like that. There's no film community in Collier County. Going home to live for a couple of years and working was not an option for me. In a city like Tampa, you can do that. The homegrown people, you can stay at home, you can work, you can put some money in your pocket, and you can go to school, and you can do so without having to go into too much debt.
Absolutely. So this is the part of the podcast where we're going to remind our audience that you are also an active filmmaker in addition to an educator. And you have a project you just finished up called Paper Line. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about the project, how you got involved with it, and what your intentions for making this film were.
Well, again, as I said, my resume was pretty dry as far as film. So we did the Ivy League, Confessions of a Black Faculty. It went over very well. Sunscreen Film Festival awarded it of Best Florida Film. Shout out to Tony Armour and those people over there. So that one was in the can. And then it was like, I still didn't feel good about my resume as far as filmmaking. A ton of commercial videography stuff, more than I know what to do with. So I was like, all right, what's next after the Ivy League? And I had the martial arts treatment written, but I didn't write a script for it. So then I wrote the script of it. Looked real good. It was cool. I'm a huge martial arts guy. I did martial arts when I was a kid. I got out of it, and now all 3 of my kids are jiu-jitsu practitioners at Gracie Pack MMA in Tampa. Through there, when I said, all right, I want to do an all-black martial arts film, there's a need for that. I did some research to find that there hasn't really been a whole lot. The Last Dragon is the one that everyone loves, but it was 1980 something. Yeah. So let's see if we can bring something a little more modern to the table. And so I reached out to my guy, Coach Martinez, Dan Martinez at Gracie Pack, and I said, hey, man, you know any black martial artists? It proved incredibly hard to find. They were not just out there. He directed me to Dr. Roddy Ferguson, who's a 2004 Olympian, a former judo champion, a world champion, or national champion in judo. I talked with him. So I was like, okay, he's gonna fit one of my roles. And I found there was another guy that I knew through USF. I met him on one of my freelance sets, and he was like, yeah, I do capoeira and jiu-jitsu. And I was like, okay, that's perfect. So like I hit him up, and then he directed me to the Black Martial Arts page on Instagram. And from there, then I was able to really be like, all right, these are the guys that I need to get with. The planning of it went by, it took a lot longer than I anticipated before, because when I did the Ivy League, I casted that in like 2 days, 3 days, quick. This one was a process. And when I got to the Black Martial Arts page on Instagram, I started seeing guys I was going to reach out to, but I didn't. It was my first time doing an action film, so I wasn't sure. I didn't know what I was doing. So what I did is I gathered a bunch of folks here in Tampa. My main guy who I met on one of my freelance sets, I showed him the script. He loved it, and he was like, all right, let's put something together. But there still was like no black martial artists here in Tampa that I knew of. They've come out now that they've seen what we're doing. They're like, yo, like I do it too. So like that's been one of the positives out of it. So what we did is we shot a demo at Gracie Pack using my daughter, her friend, and just a couple of guys that I knew at the gym to just come in and sort of be bodies to show what a 7-on-1 fight confrontation would look like. And we shot that in one day, shot everything on a wide shot just to see what it would look like, to see how we were playing. And once we had that sort of dummy, I guess, like video storyboard of it, I was able to show that to some of the guys, the professional guys, Devontae Thomas, Mike McGee. They'll both be here for the screening of Paperline. I was able to show them the video, and they looked at that and they were like, whoa, okay, yeah, I see what you're trying to do here. So to go along with the script, then it was just a matter of filling in, finding the bodies, man, and finding people that were interested, and everyone pretty much was interested. I didn't get, there was maybe one guy who was like, kind of like, he never actually said no. It's just, I could never get up with him through his management company. Everyone loved the idea, and it was just a matter of getting everyone here in one piece to do it. We shot during the insane spike of the Omicron. Is that how you say it?
Omicron and COVID.
Yeah, like we shot during that, and it was just so nerve-wracking to make sure that nobody got sick and no one got hurt or anything like that. I wanted to do something that would sort of, I'm always trying to think about what's the next big thing and how can we do something, how can I tell a story that I like and then put others in a situation where they can accelerate their progress. I love seeing, I guess it's just the educator in me. I love seeing people like work with me and then go on and do bigger and better things. Like that's just how I'm wired. Yeah. So when I see like guys one of our guys, Mike McGee, he ended up in the in a Beats by Dre commercial with Ja Morant that just aired, and he started with us, and so he put us on his resume, and then he was able to sign up, and he's got a SAG rate, and he's not even a SAG guy. So just things like that, and just giving this outlet for these young men to perform and show what they can do, and put it out there for everyone so that they can get more bookings. Like that's what I'm all about.
Well, and I want you to give the one-line synopsis of what Paperline is too. But more importantly, I've seen the trailer. I haven't seen the final film, but I do know about the project because we helped incentivize it as a county. But this is not a kung fu exploitation film from the 70s. This is an empowering film.
Absolutely.
And it shows off the best of these people's ability on screen in a really positive way. So give us what the log line of what Paperline is, and then talk about how you're transforming this into something very positive.
Yes, the log line for Paperline is 7 pledges get the shock of a lifetime when they attempt to join the most secreted and respected fraternity at an HBCU. And the positive part of it is that we all have heard a lot of the stories that have come out of these organizations in terms of the hazing, which has unfortunately resulted in some injuries and in some cases some deaths, which was always something that you heard about it when you were in undergrad, and I was too temperamental. I have so many friends that joined the Divine Nine, and I love them, and I've supported them. I went to their probate shows and all that thing, but it just was not for me. I was a little too temperamental and a grudge holder to endure any kind of situation like that and not hold it. Like it was not gonna be a situation where I'd be like, all right, you my brother now. No, bro. Like I don't know if anyone's seen The Burning Sands. Like that movie specifically was just like, it was over the edge. Now I had written Paperline before I saw The Burning Sands. I just wasn't sure when was I going to be able to get Paperline out there. And then someone told me, yo, you need to watch The Burning Sands. And I watched The Burning Sands. I was like, yes, I'm right where I need to be with what I'm doing. So what we do in the, without giving the whole movie away, is that we take sort of the approach of martial arts training as your initiation instead of abuse. You know what I'm saying? Because like if you watch The Burning Sands, it's abuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't want anything like that in my film. I wanted it to be, it's going to be obviously martial arts, it's going to be some fighting, but it's not going to be anything that's forced. Like you're not forced to beat anybody up. You're forced to make a choice about what way do you want to go about this. And if you choose the wrong way, then there are consequences. And that's essentially the story that we had without giving all of it away.
And for those who are listening, at some point this will be available for people to see after you do your festival circuit. But the fight choreography is absolutely amazing. And going back to what you were saying earlier, it was very difficult to cast this. Mm-hmm. I think this is an amazing way to empower people to find their voice, find their physicality in martial arts by seeing their own selves represented on screen,
Absolutely.
which I think is awesome. So talk a little bit about that and just inspiring people as a result of this film.
Yeah, we see there are a lot of amazing black martial artists, Wesley, Michael Jai White, and so many others, but they don't get to work with one another.
Yeah.
They end up in a film where they're fighting vampires, or they're fighting, the mob, or maybe a Chinese triad or something like that, but they're not working with one another. And so that was something that I saw a need for, is to get all the black martial artists working with one another, because they are out there. They're just like not, like they more have come out since we've been putting things out there. So that representation there, all of my kids do martial arts. I did it as a kid, and it's something that, again, I wanted to get back in, but then I became a dad and a worker and all that stuff. And so this is sort of my way of getting back in without actually taking all the bumps and stuff like that, even though I did get out there and take a few bumps with them every now and then. It's important. And it's important for us to remember that I did some research that the black martial arts experience goes all the way back to the civil rights era, where the Nation of Islam, as well as the Black Panthers, they were practitioners of judo and karate. And there's organized video of this. There's a great show that's out, The Godfather of Harlem with Forrest Whitaker. They talk about sort of relationship between the Nation and Bumpy Johnson, who was like a legendary crime figure in Harlem. And he'd go into the mosque every now and then, and they'd have the girls in there learning judo and karate. And they were doing it for that reason, so that they didn't, because if they had guns, then the police would shoot them. That's how they felt. But if they knew hand to hand, then they just viewed that as being a better option. And so it's something that was going on back in the day. And so when I thought about how the old fraternities and sororities sort of were constructed, they were constructed back in the early 1900s, based along the lines of not being able to participate and not wanting to participate in some of the other fraternities that were on the yard, if you will. Yep. Because they weren't allowed to. So let's create our own little group here where it's us, and we actually are using principles that were useful to us within the civil rights era. And just as far as like what it means to me, like I just gotta say it was an honor, man. Like there were so many reasons why it could have gone bad. We didn't have no injuries. Nobody got sick. You get a lot of fellas in that much testosterone, and these are some world-class athletes former football players. Like, I mean, we had all of that and living in one Airbnb, and there wasn't no drama, no beef. Like, everyone got along. They loved each other. They now kick it, and they, you know, we comment on each other's social media. Some of them hang out when they're in town with one another. And it's just been a wonderful thing, man. And being able to sort of be a facilitator of that, it means everything to me, because that stuff was not going on when I was, you know, there wasn't anyone doing stuff like this that my son's going to be able to look at that and be like, yo, like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, like, there wasn't anything like that for me when I was growing up. It was just, you know, go to work.
Well, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the podcast here, but, you know, I think if anything to take away is that you can inspire both on set and in the classroom as well. And that's something you've done amazingly well. And I'm so appreciative of having someone like you in our community, working, teaching, you know, bettering filmmakers of tomorrow. I think you're going to have amazing success with Paperline, too. I am so excited for people to see this film. And they're going to get an opportunity to a little later in the summer. And then I'm assuming you're going to start posting this around at as many festivals as you can.
I cannot wait. It's been a task. It's been exhausting, but it's been worth it. And, you know, I want to shout out my team, the Watchtower Film team, Marissa Allen, Jessica Rosado, Evan Smith, Tori and Tarrant. Speaking of students, Eris Sperling, a wonderful, wonderful sound engineer. She did the trailer audio, and she's currently sound designing, and she's doing an outstanding job. And a lot of these people, they work for low to no, you know what I'm saying? They just came on board because they wanted to do it, and because they believed in it. And it's a very humbling experience for me. We raised $18,000 on Kickstarter, which, I don't know. I still look back on that and don't realize that was a big thing. And then that 18,000 actually turned into 23,000 because I had a guy come on at the end of it like, well, what can I get involved? And I was like, yeah, I have a prequel scene I want to shoot. Like, can we do that? He was like, yeah, let's do it. So it's just been wonderful, man. And then again, just from a black filmmaker perspective, we have our stories, and I want to be able to sort of be a guy that can be a face of that and show that you can do things, and that we don't have to just be subjected to shooting music videos. You know what I'm saying? We can tell stories that mean something to our people and everyone. And then again, like, our way of telling our stories as far as African Americans is that we can show ourselves in a light that has not been seen before. And that's what this film is about, is showing the black martial arts experience as a whole, as a group, which has not really been captured in cinema before. And that's something that a lot of people can benefit from, and understand that there is a historical context to what we're doing.
No, incredibly inspiring. So let's give 2 shout outs at the end here. Where can people find more about you on social media?
You can find more about me on social media. I'm at RyWatts810. That's RYWATS 810 on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I do not know my Facebook address,
but I'm assuming if someone searches for Ryan Watson,
yeah, if you search Ryan Watson USF or Ryan Watson Agent of Video, you'll find me. Don't search USF; you'll see my Rate My Professor score.
Mine too. Don't go on and look at that. It actually is pretty good, and I'm sure yours is as well.
No, it's not actually, because like, you know, I suffer the consequences. It's not terrible. It's not a 5.
Yeah.
I suffer the consequences of having to kick people's asses because I was a young guy and I needed them to take me seriously.
This is an actual true story. You can look this up if you look at me for Rate My Professor. But one of the comments was, he expects us to learn things, and that was a negative. Like, oh my, what?
Dude,
why are you here?
Bro, I had one that said, pay attention in class, because he's going to say things that you're going to get tested on. Really?
Yeah. The frustrations of being a professor. But let's end with Paperline. So you just dropped a brand new trailer.
Yes.
It is hot. Where can people see this, and where can people learn more about Paperline online?
So you can learn more about the film at Alpha Omega Sigma Inc. on Instagram. We also have an IMDb page, Paperline, on IMDb. It'll come up for you. And then obviously if you follow me, as I've completely just like, I'm a member of the fraternity. That's my job right now, is to handle that as well as my responsibilities at USF. So,
well, and if you're listening to this, definitely go look at the trailer. It's amazing. The choreography is amazing. It looks amazing. It sounds incredible. I'm so excited for people to see this film. So with that, Ryan, we got to close it out. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you. Next time, we'll be right back. And we're back. Well, that was fun, except for the last 5 minutes when I was reminded that my Rate My Professor score is out there for people to Google and see, which is always terrifying.
Yeah.
But people don't teach.
But the reviews are
comments.
hilarious.
They are. Like, you need to learn things. He expects
us
you to do
know
things.
things.
Yeah, what?
How dare you, Professor?
Oh my gosh. I can't believe people are out there like that, but they are. So,
Yeah.
but for everyone that comments online with silly things like that, there's plenty there can go off to do amazing things, and it's always a joy teaching. But that was a really great conversation. What I really liked about it was just Ryan's passion about teaching, but also the relevancy of staying up to date on materials and understanding progressive technology and being fresh for your students, because that's what people are paying a lot of money for, right?
Yeah.
But it's also not just pushing the button, it's why you're pushing the button. And he is so right when he says the main point of education these days for film and digital media is to instill the idea of telling stories and telling them well to your students.
Yeah. He said something where he was like, he said, I don't want to tell a group full of students something that they already know.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, it seems so obvious, but I just feel like it's so poignant to like, most professors don't care. Most professors are, I think that's rare that someone is like, no, I want to see you guys grow and I want to see you achieve something after this, you know?
There is a stagnation, I think, a lot of times in education where, look, my syllabus is working. Why am I going to change it? And you can't do that in film and digital media. You can't do that really in most industries, right? You've got to stay relevant. You got to stay up to date.
Yeah.
And it really is, Ryan hit on, being a young professor when he was starting out. You've got to earn the respect of your students. And you can't do that if you're relying on something that's no longer relevant or you're not up to date. The minute a student asks you about, a new codex or a latest editing program or something, and you have no reference for that, like, what? What is that? Like,
And it's kind of telling because, like, I love that he has such an open mind in going towards educating like that because, as you said, technology is ever evolving, and if you're teaching the same thing over and over again.
And he really has transformed the entire film program in the Zimmerman College at USF. I don't think they would have the LED volume wall they do now if it wasn't for his passion and connection.
I graduated from
technology.
USF, class of 2015.
Oh.
I am sad that I did not take a class with Professor Watson.
Oh.
But I think that's about the time that he joined. But yeah, that view LED wall is so cool.
It is. It's really cool.
The students learning on that, I mean,
you feel like a kid in a candy store. But what I really think the LED volume does is unlocks the students' creativity, right? It gives them, just the means to create outside of their normal financial means, right? Like, how many students have written, what about this? I got this great short film. It takes place in a starship, or it's on a different planet, or I'm on top of Mount Everest. You can't do that as a student normally, but by having this technology, assuming you can still tell a good story, it's unlocking your ability to go places you could never go anywhere else.
It takes place in a shire, and all of a sudden you're there.
You're there. It's really cool, but it doesn't take the place of good storytelling. Good storytelling still has to be at the core of what you're doing. But
well, back to staying fresh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How do you stay fresh?
How do I stay fresh?
Yeah.
Shower twice a day, but
that's not what I'm talking about. And I don't think anybody on this podcast wants to know about our shower routines.
No, I'm sure they don't. I will tell you, I used to stay on top of things a lot. So when I was teaching sound, image, and motion, which was sort of a remedial intro class, is one of my classes that I taught.
Yeah.
And at the time, Final Cut was sort of king of the crop for prosumer editing. You still had Avid at the pro level, but it was just getting economical enough to where students could purchase it themselves. It was a pre-installed option on most Macs if we were buying it. Prior to that, it was like $1,200 for a Final Cut suite. It was really expensive. So things are first starting to change. We were just getting out of digital cameras that were reliant on tapes. So we were using Digibeta at the time, and then that started morphing into cards and other media that you could upload to the cloud or whatever. So it was kind of a transitional period. So I was having to stay up to date in that stuff all the time, right? Just to from one semester to the next, things were changing. But I haven't taught in 5-6 years. I haven't edited in 5-6 years. In fact, I think at this point you probably know more about editing than I do.
Yeah, but I only know the world of Premiere Pro.
The fundamentals are still in my hair, but or in my head. But
you help me with a lot of things. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know how to do certain, graphics and stuff like that, and you're like, hang on a second.
I mean, things don't change that quickly.
Right.
But as
there's fundamentals.
But I'm also feeling more and more like an old man some days. Like I don't have TikTok. I barely know how to use Instagram.
The thought of a vertical video for you, your mind is still blown.
Can't do it. I use
Just
Instagram a lot, but just for photos.
Right.
I cannot figure out how to do any of the reels. And I'm a pretty smart cookie. No idea. I just cannot piece it together. And I see kids doing things now in the social media space. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, our guest today, he does this thing where he calls in, I think his name's Steven Smith.
Yeah, it's for ESPN.
It's a sport.
Yeah.
He's on Sports Center. And it's gotten to the point where every time he sees Ryan Watson's face, he's like, this guy again. And it is so funny. If you don't follow Ryan on social media, you should just for that roast.
It's awesome. He roasts some, at this point, it's like a weekly tradition where he calls him out on some stupid sports comment he made. I think Ryan's 3-0 at this point.
Yeah. Undefeated.
But that's a lot of fun. But yeah, so as far as like staying fresh, I gave up. I shouldn't say I gave up. I just don't care anymore because I don't use it in my life. Right. I know other things. So.
Right, like your position as film commissioner has kind of switched, and now you have more legislative things, and you have to stay fresh in different.
Yeah, 5 years ago, I couldn't tell you about half the bills moving through the House or the Senate, but now I'm up to date on all those things.
Exactly.
So, you stay fresh in different ways depending on what your career path is. But great question. But no, I gave up on technology. Now I'm the old man like yelling at the clouds.
The cloud, yelling at the cloud.
I can't even get memes right. Well, with that, we should close this down.
Yeah.
So that was another podcast. Hope you guys go out and check out the trailer for Paperline coming up, and definitely follow Ryan on social media. Like Jesse was saying, he's constantly posting, and it's really good content too. So with that, Jesse, where can they find us?
We are Loose Framing Podcast. You can stream us anywhere you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow @Film Tampa Bay on all social media channels.
And with that, we'll see you next time.